If you take a look inside of their bin right now, you're gonna see that they got a mixture of corn and creep pellets. And so right now I do have these animals on a total mixed ration. I am feeding them their a ration, the grass. Okay, so one of the things about grass that I realized, okay, so my grass is not growing very well right now. It's growing kind of slow, and I believe that it was I boiled it down to a few things, and then I'm going to address those few things this week. And so I believe that what happened was that, okay, so it was sometime last month, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago or so. About 3 weeks ago, I put that fertilizer on the grass, and I put 75 pounds of nitrogen on my grass at a ratio of 5:1:3:1 NPK sulfur. And I put about 75 pounds of nitrogen on the grass per acre. And I got 1 inch of rain on it since then. And the 1 inch of rain, it was not enough rain to get the fertilizer into the ground because I top dressed the fertilizer. When it comes to the fertilizer, I believe that if you're gonna top dress fertilizer, this is something that I boiled it down, right? I was taking a look at my situation and I said, what do I think? What do I reasonably believe is going on, right? I put 75 pounds of nitrogen on my grass. I put it on a ratio at 5:1:3:1 NPK sulfur. I got 1 inch of rain and my grass is not hardly growing, but the weeds are growing. The weeds are growing, and so and the weeds are okay. So weeds, they are considered invasive plants for a reason, right? I mean, they grow under very, very, very difficult circumstances. A lot of weeds, they will grow. The reason that they are called an invasive weed plant or whatever, an invasive plant, is because they will grow when crops won't. They grow in very difficult circumstances. And so, like, if you have a mare's tail, if you have a horsetail, like if you have a horsetail plant, it could be blazing hot outside. It could be legitimately like 105 degrees outside, and that plant will just still be right there. I mean, it won't die. Everything else, your corn would have died. Corn would have, if it's like 100 degrees outside, let's say it's 100 degrees outside, and let's just use mare's tail. You can look up this plant, it's called horsetail. And let's say you have a horsetail weed on your field, right? And you've planted corn, and it turns 95 degrees outside, it's blazing hot outside. It's 100 degrees outside, it is blazing hot outside. Your corn is frying up, your corn is dying, and the horsetail will just continue to grow. It will legitimately just continue to grow. And that's why, weeds take over fields, right? If you have, long story short, I believe that what is happening is that I did not get enough rain on my field. And also I'm going to put more fertilizer on the field next week, because I put 75 pounds of nitrogen on my field, and I put it on at a ratio of 5:1:3:1 NPK sulfur. And even if I put 75 more pounds on, okay, so I've said this repeatedly in the past too, and the answer is the same, right? Fertilizer for a plant is like food for a person. Fertilizer for a plant is like food for a person. If you graze your grass very hard, if you are in a situation like me where you are legitimately running like 4 to 5 cattle an acre 24/7, you legitimately have cattle on your field 24/7, and you have like 4 to 5 cattle per acre, and they're eating the grass. Essentially, eating the grass is like working out. If you work out a bunch, you will need to eat a lot of food. And so if you graze your grass very hard, you will need to increase the amount of fertilizer on your field, because your plants will be metabolizing more of it. And so, legitimately, I graze my field with 4 to 5 cattle per acre 24/7. And so my grass is always being eaten. And so, the fertilizer requirements for my field in particular are going to be higher than a field that if you were just growing a crop for grain, let's say you were growing a crop for grain. If you were growing a crop for grain, that crop for grain would not need as much fertilizer as my field. Because my field will need more, because my field is constantly being eaten. And so, and I've always talked about saturation points, right? And if you have a positively charged fertilizer, it's going, and the ground is negatively charged, the positively charged fertilizer will chemically bind It will legitimately bind itself chemically. The positive charge on the fertilizer will bind itself to the negative charge on the soil. And so your fertilizer will not go anywhere. And so you need a substantial amount of rain over an extended period of time for your fertilizer to actually physically move down into the soil profile. And and the way for, okay, so and when it comes to, the plants metabolizing fertilizer, the plant's roots need to come in contact with the fertilizer in one form or another. If you have a negatively charged fertilizer and it rains, and that rain dissolves your fertilizer, and it creates a solution with the fertilizer inside of the rain, and that rain is pushed through the soil, that rain goes through the soil, when the water with the solution, there will be that negatively charged mineral in the water dissolved into the water. When that solution comes into contact with the roots of the plant, the plant will metabolize it. The plant will uptake the minerals, and they will metabolize it to create their physical structure. With physically charged fertilizer, right? If you have a positively charged mineral, that positively charged mineral needs to be pushed through the soil profile physically. So either you need a massive amount of rain, you need a massive amount of rain, or you need to plow the fertilizer into your field somehow. You need to and I know that people also have these plows where you can it's like a chisel plow, but it goes into the field and then it injects gas. It injects a gas into your field. So it will inject gas into your field, and if that gas is your positively charged fertilizer, then that's another way you can do it. But you need to do something, right? You need to do something to get that positively charged fertilizer into your soil profile. If you just throw fertilizer on the top of your field, if you have a phosphorus deficiency, and it's a severe phosphorus deficiency, legitimately, if you do not correct your phosphorus deficiency, or more than likely it will be a potassium deficiency. In terms of generic information, your plants will metabolize exponentially more, like 3 to 7 times more potassium than they will phosphorus. And phosphorus and potassium are both positively charged minerals. And so if you have a phosphorus, if your plant has more than likely it will have a potassium deficiency. If it has a potassium, because just in terms of generalities, if we are going to talk about, plants in general, most plants will metabolize significantly more potassium than they will phosphorus. And so if you need to put phosphorus on your field like today, if legitimately your phosphorus, if you need to put potassium on your field today, genuinely there is such a severe potassium deficiency on your field that your plants are actually growing negatively. Like your biomass accumulation is actually negative. Like you wake up today and you're like, I have less grass or whatever, I have less plant material on my field today than I did last month. I legitimately have less grass on my field today than I did 2 months ago. I legitimately have less grass today than I did last week. If you are in that situation, your biomass accumulation is negative. Like, let's say you got cattle on your field and you're like, 2 months ago, my grass was real good, right? A month ago, my grass was real good, but now I don't have anything. Legitimately, my grass is all gone. Legitimately, I can visibly see that my grass is gone. Then your biomass accumulation is negative. You are accumulating negative biomass. So something is wrong. You need to go and take a look at it. And more than likely, if you have a positively charged mineral deficiency, it's probably going to be potassium. And, even if you are going to apply potassium, even if you diagnose, I've said this repeatedly and the answer is going to be the same. Even if you have a potassium deficiency, if you apply potassium to your field, you also need to apply somewhat of a ratio of the other minerals, because plants will not just take up one mineral at a time. I've said this like 50 times again, right? Fertilizer for plants is like food for people. When you eat a steak, let's say you eat a steak, right? When you eat a steak, you're not just eating protein. You're eating fat. You're eating protein. You're eating fat. You got vitamins. You got minerals. You got all that stuff, and you are accumulating everything at the same time. It's the same thing with fertilizer. If you have a potassium deficiency on your field and you apply potassium on your field correctly, it will increase the amount of, your plants will still be accumulating the other minerals in ratios. And so if you are more than likely If you are in a situation where even if you have diagnosed a potassium deficiency, you will have to apply other minerals as well. And you will have to have an idea of what is going on with your field. Over the last 3 years of my field, let's say like 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was looking to create a phosphorus and a potassium deficiency on purpose. And so I applied a nitrogen, I applied urea on my field. And by the time I got to about 160 pounds of urea, there was a drastic potassium deficiency on my field, right? And so, I was looking to prepare my field for my next planting. I was looking to prepare my field for my next planting. And, I wanted to get rid of all the phosphorus and the potassium on my field to a large degree. I wanted to get rid of as much of it as I can. And the way that I did that was I created a nitrogen imbalance in my field, right? I created a nitrogen imbalance on my field. I applied nitrogen on my field to purposefully create a potassium deficiency on my field, so that when I plant my next crop and I plow my field, I can then apply the positively charged fertilizer, right? I can apply the positively charged fertilizer, and when I prepare my field for the next planting, I'm gonna have to plow my field anyway. And so when I plow my field, the positively charged fertilizer, when I plow my field to get that, to plant my next set of crop, when I plow my field to plant my next set of crop, and I plow my field and I have positive, I'm going to be, that is my opportunity to put positively charged fertilizer on my field and have it have an instantaneous effect, right? And so, this is something, this is what I did maybe about 7 months ago. And so, you're going to have some sort of an idea of what is going on. You will. If you don't, I'm telling you, you will hemorrhage money. That's the other side. If you want to sit around and do nothing and just go, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose a lot of money, maybe even everything. You're legitimately going to lose money forever until you figure it out. And so, okay, so yesterday I actually got my check. And I've been telling y'all that I'm going to make roughly $12,000, right? And, over the last, 47 days, I'm going to make roughly $12,000 in the cattle business. And I made $11,212. One of my animals had a ripped ear. And I think she got deducted. I'm not exactly sure what happened on her, but, and here's the thing. And I've always said, if I'm 93% correct, it doesn't matter. Like, if I'm 90, please don't sit around and go, oh my God, I told you he's lying. Oh my God, he didn't make 12 grand. He made $11,212, right? Please don't sit around and do that. If you do that, you're wasting your life. I'm telling you, you're going to get nowhere forever. You are stuck the way you are forever if you stay like, I'm telling you. Okay, here's the thing. If you are like that, it's not going to affect me at all. I've already said I'm going to get paid no matter what, right? As long as I continue to run cattle, I can essentially make as much money as I want. That is how good I am at running cattle. Legitimately, as long as I continue to run cattle, I can legitimately make as much money as I possibly want. If you sit around and you go, oh my God, I knew it, he was lying, he didn't make 12 grand, he made $11,212, then you're screwed. Like, if that is genuinely what you are sitting around and doing, there is no hope for you. I'm telling you, by the time you are like that, you are stuck like that forever. What does it matter that let's say this month I made $11,212, right? Well, next month maybe I make $12,700, right? I took 8 heifers to market. I got steers that are ready to go to market. I got steers that are ready to go. And when I take steers to market, I'm going to make more money than I do on the heifers. And so who is to say, realistically, over the long course of time, more or less, I will be right? I will be correct. And, and I've talked about this repeatedly, but it doesn't matter what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about grass, even if I'm only 93% correct, then that's perfectly fine, right? Like, when I talk about my grass, I'm 93% correct, right? When I talk about my business, I'm 93% correct. When I talk about my cattle, I'm 93% correct, right? 93% correct is perfectly fine. And, and I'm being as sincere with y'all as I can. I'm giving y'all the best information that I possibly know. Because here's the thing is that nobody showed up and actually showed me how to do this. Nobody, if somebody legitimately showed up and said, legitimately, I may be one of the best cattlemen on the entire freaking planet. I may be one of the best. Like, you may never see anybody like me again, ever, for the entirety of your life. That is how good I am. And here is the money to prove it. Right? I legitimately made, $12,000 in the cattle business. I made $11,212 over the last 47 days in the cattle business, just in the cattle business. And to put things into perspective for you, Here's the thing, right? I sold 8 heifers. And I came home with $11,212 and some odd change. If I went to the sale barn right now and I brought home 8 heifers, it wouldn't even cost me 7 grand. It would cost me like 7 grand. Not even, maybe, right? Legitimately, with the 8 heifers that I sold, I can go to the sale barn and purchase 11 heifers and plant grass. That is how much money I made. I could legitimately replant all of my grass and buy 11 heifers of equal quality and value. I could legitimately go to the sale barn right now and purchase 11 heifers 1 to 1.5 times. This is what I mean. But I genuinely make like a 50% return on my money every 6 months. I'm making like a 50% return every 6 months. And you know, and here's the thing, I say money talks, right? Money talks. If you're poor, there's a reason you're poor, right? And okay, here's the thing. Here's another interesting way to put it, right? Because I was thinking about this. Okay, so here is how I see the world. A lot of y'all on YouTube, right? There are a lot of y'all on YouTube who are farming. A lot of people on YouTube that farm. And you can go on YouTube and you can look up cattle farmers all over the place. This person's got their cattle farm. That person's got their cattle farm. This person's got their cattle farm. This person's got their cattle farm. This person's got their hay farm. You can go on YouTube and look it up, right? This is a very interesting way to put it. Go and look at other people. See what they're doing, right? And see if you find anybody that's even getting to the 10% mark of what I'm doing. Legitimately, just objectively, they are getting to the 10% mark. And maybe one way you gauge it is by money. They're saying over the last 2 months, I made $1,700, or I made $1,200, right? Over the last 47 days on my cattle farm, I made $1,200. I made roughly 12 grand, right? I made $11,212. Go on YouTube or look around on YouTube right now and see if you find somebody who made $1,100. Who made $1,100 over the last 47 days on a 10-acre farm. You're not going to find a single person. And that's what I mean by nobody's even getting to the 10% mark. And instead of YouTube, imagine me driving around and instead of watching people's YouTube channels or whatever, seeing y'all on YouTube, imagine me driving around and essentially imagine me seeing these various YouTube people farming in the world around me. That is what I mean by nobody's getting to the 10% mark. And even at the rate that you are going, if you got to the 10% mark by the time you were 5,000 years old, I would be impressed. You are not going to make it even if you live to be 5,000 at the rate you are going. Go around on YouTube and look right now. I'm dead serious. Close this or whatever you want, or whatever you want to do. Go on YouTube and look right now. Go and look up somebody running cattle on a 10-acre field. Go and look up somebody growing hay on a 10-acre field. Go and look up somebody running cattle on a 100-acre field. Go and look up somebody running, growing grass on a 100-acre field. See if they make as much money as me, even on 100 acres. See if they are making as much money as me. You're not going to find a single person even getting to the 10% mark. I made $11,212 just in the cattle business over the last 48 days, 45 days or whatever it was. And with the 8 heifers that I sold, I could legitimately go to the sale barn right now and purchase 11 heifers and replant all of my grass. Legitimately, that is how much money I make. And and I'm not sitting here trying to fiddle my own diddly. I'm legitimately telling you, go and look around. See if you find anybody that's even getting to the 10% mark. And this is what I mean by at the rate that y'all are going, whoever, okay, because YouTube is kind of like, it's actually kind of interesting because YouTube is kind of like it's like a micro universe in itself, right? It's like its own micro universe. It's like a tiny little universe. If you go on YouTube right now and you look up cattle farmers, you can find cattle farmers all over the place. If you look up hay farmers, you can find hay farmers all over the place, right? And you can kind of get, you don't even have to drive out into the countryside anymore. You can watch what people are doing on YouTube. You can just watch them do it. And when you watch them do it, see if you can find anybody even getting to the 10% mark of what I'm doing. See if you can. Legitimately see if you can. You won't be, and if you do, let me know. Legitimately, right? Don't go and find some 10,000 acre corn farmer and be like, oh my God, you know, this person, you know, if I was making $200 an acre, I would throw myself off a bridge. Why would I do that? Right? Legitimately. Why would I go and do that? You know, I make $12,000. I made $11,400 or $11,212 over the last 46 days on a 10-acre field running cattle. So, you know, why would I go and, you know, oh my God, you know, there's this corn farmer over here who got 10,000 acres, and, you know, oh my God, you know, and oh, here's the thing, okay? If you got a corn farmer and you watching their channel, they're not going to show you all 10,000 of their acres. They're going to show you their best 10 acres. All right, that's the whole point of YouTube, right? I mean, most of these corn farmers, they're not making money if they got, okay. And I'm not trying to throw flack on people. I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to rain on your parade. But let's just be honest with ourselves, right? If you got a 10,000 acre field and you're on YouTube and you're making a lot of money, right? You're making a lot of money on YouTube, right? If that is you, you're not going to go and show all 10,000 of your acres. You're going to show your best, like, you're going to show your best quarter acre, right? Legitimately, let's just be honest. Because if you are making a lot of money on YouTube, you're not making money. You're not making much money as a farmer. You're not making much money as a farmer. You are making money on YouTube. And so imagine if you are, you know, if you are watching someone's channel and they got some, and you're like, oh my God, look at this person's cornfield, right? You need to go to their cornfield and look at all 10,000 of their acres. They're probably not doing that good. Realistically, let's just be honest with ourselves. They may have some acres over here producing 200 bushel, but they may also have some acres on the other side of town that is only producing 100. Legitimately, right? Like Texas style corn, legitimately Texas corn, right? Like the worst corn that you could ever imagine. I wouldn't touch the corn business in Texas with a 10-foot pole. And you know, I wouldn't touch the corn business in Texas with a 50-foot pole, you know. And it's like, you know, and if you watch somebody on YouTube, right? If you watch somebody on YouTube and they're going, and you're going, oh my God, look at this person's cornfield, or oh my God, look at this person's, you know, epic farm or whatever. They're not showing you their entire farm. They are showing you like a micro, they are showing you something that they want you to see. Me, I show you everything. I show you everything. You know, that's one of the big benefits of watching my channel, right? I legitimately show you everything. And I tell you exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right? And so, you know, you got to consider these, you got to be, you know, you got to really think about these things. If somebody is growing a 10,000 acre field of corn, do you think that all 10,000 acres look like the, you know, like, and they're showing you a video, do you think all 10,000 of their acres look like that? No, it doesn't, right? I mean, they're doing it for a purpose. They are doing it so that they can make money on YouTube. I told you that I don't make any money on YouTube at all. I make all of my money in the cattle business. Straight up in the cattle business, legitimately, right? And I don't make a single dollar on YouTube. Even, you know, I don't make a single penny on YouTube. I make all of my money in the cattle business. And I made $11,212 over the last 46 days. Legitimately, 100%. It was $11,212 plus or minus 1% over the last 46 days running cattle on a 10-acre field. And you have to consider that, right? And I'm legitimately showing you everything, and I'm showing you how I do it. I'm telling you what's going through my mind. What am I doing right now? Like, you know, my grass in the front right now, it's got that ground cover on it. It's got that ground cover on it, and it's and yesterday I put some Duracore. Okay, so me, the herbicide that I like to use. The herbicide that I like to use is Duracore. If I have a patch of grass, if I have a field of grass, I will put Duracore. I will use Duracore. I won't use 2,4-D. 2,4-D is kind of old school. I'll use Duracore. And so yesterday I put 10 milliliters of Duracore in a backpack sprayer. And that backpack sprayer, I don't know exactly how many gallons it holds, but it's just your average backpack sprayer. You know, they're all about the same size. I think they're like 2.5 gallons or 3 gallons or something. I filled it up 3/4 of the way. I filled it up 3/4 of the way with water, and then I put 10 milliliters of Duracore in it, and then I just went around and I hand sprayed the weeds, and the weeds are already frying up. And the sorghum Sudan grass, I'm not sure if there's any damage to it, but it doesn't look like there's any damage to it. And but I will know next week when it rains a lot. I will know. And so if it rains a lot and the grass starts growing, as long as the grass does not die and the weeds do die, it doesn't really matter to me. Even if the grass is damaged, it'll grow out of it. You know, the grass will just continue to grow until the damage is irrelevant. But as long as the weeds die, then that's fine. So yesterday I got a backpack sprayer. I filled it up about 75% with water. I put 10 milliliters of Duracore in it, and I just hand sprayed the areas. I sprayed I hand sprayed about an acre and a half. About an acre and a half, I hand sprayed it. And but I only ended up using about half. Of it. And so realistically, the next time I spray Duracore, if I'm using a backpack sprayer, I won't mix as much solution. So I'll use I'll use about a half a tank of water instead of 3/4. I'll use a half a tank, and I'll use 5 milliliters of Duracore. And I sprayed it on my field, and the weeds are already frying up. The weeds are already curling up and dying, and the grass looks like it's still doing okay. I haven't seen any signs of damage on the grass yet, but grass, it might respond slower. And so I'm gonna have to take a look. It's supposed to rain a lot next week, and next week I'm also gonna be putting fertilizer on my plants. So I'm gonna be putting fertilizer on my field. Next week I got about a chance of it raining about 3 days out of the week. And so if it rains 3 days out of the week, I need to anticipate that I'm not going to be able to get on my field for about 2 weeks. I won't be able to get it back on my field for about 2 weeks. And so I need to put the fertilizer that I want to put on my grass for the month soon, before it starts raining. Because if it starts raining and it rains for 3 days out of the week, I will not be able to get back on my grass to put fertilizer on my grass for about 2 weeks. And then, if the plants are already on a negative, if the plants are already, losing biomass, there's not enough fertilizer on the field for the plants to sustain a biomass accumulation, then I will need, then I'm now in a problematic situation. And so I'm gonna put fertilizer on my field in about 2 days. In about 2 or 3 days, I will put fertilizer on my field. It's supposed to rain for about 3 to 4 days out of the week. And if it rains for 3 to 4 days out of the week, I won't be able to get back on my field for 2 weeks. And so, I need to put the fertilizer that I want on my grass for this month. I need to put it on the grass, like, effective immediately, like within the next 48 hours. And then that's going to be the fertilizer that my plants metabolize over the course of about the next month. About the next 3 weeks, maybe about a month. And so I got that going on too. I'm going to put fertilizer on my grass. That's on the schedule. I put Duracore. I sprayed Duracore, and it's working. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about this real fast too, but okay, let's say you are in a situation. Okay, I'm just going to use me as an example, right? When it comes to cash, I've said this repeatedly in the past too, there is no reason to go all cash. You don't want to be in a situation where you are legitimately just have a death grip on cash, right? You don't want to have a death grip on cash. Realistically, for me, if I have $10,000 in the bank, if I have $10,000 cash that I can access at any time, I have $10,000 cash, I don't need any more cash, right? I could legitimately, I could pay for my tractor, I could pay for my mortgage, I could pay for my living expenses, I could pay for everything for like the next 2.5 months. With $10,000 cash, I legitimately could, if I stopped working tomorrow, I could still pay off about 2.5 months worth of expenses, right? So there's not any reason for me to get any more cash. And if my assets are appreciating, if I have assets that I'm like, if I hold on to these assets and I do what I need to do, then the value of my assets will go up. Then it is more important for me to hold on to my assets than it is for me to have a death grip on cash. And if I genuinely needed cash, right? If I genuinely needed cash, and let's say I have these animals, right? And these animals, the value of these animals is higher than the amount that I put into them. Let's say these animals, I put about $1,200. Let's just say I put $1,200, which is extremely high. I did not put $1,200 into each one of the animals, but let's just say, because I always say lowball yourself, right? And let's say I put $1,200 into one of these animals. And, right now, if I took them to market, I would make $1,400, right? And let's say, if I took one of these animals to market, then that $200, the extra $200, that's just extra money in my pocket. And, I did not put $1,200 into one of these animals. These animals, I did not put $1,200 into each animal, right? If I bring them home for $700, I'm not going to put $500 into each animal, right? That's ridiculous. And so, I did not put $500 into each animal. If a replacement cost for a heifer right now is $700 to $800, I did not put $400 or $500 into each one of these animals, right? Maybe I put on the high end, maybe I put $200. But realistically, I probably put something like $100 to $150 into each one of these animals. And when my grass is growing, next week when my grass is growing in real good, you're gonna see what I mean. It legitimately costs me almost nothing, and I make a ballistic amount of money doing it. I mean, I'm gonna put about $700 worth of fertilizer on my grass, and it's gonna grow so much grass that legitimately my animals are gonna be able to eat as much as they want, and they still will not be able to eat all of it. And so, $700, $700 over, and which is very high. I'm putting some extra fertilizer on my grass right now because I'm anticipating that my biomass accumulation right now is going to be more. It's going to be pretty substantial, right? I mean, if I'm going to get 3 days out of the week with rain, and it's between 65, 70 in the afternoon and the evening, and about 85, 90 in the afternoon, that's essentially a perfect case scenario. And there's ample amount of moisture. That is essentially a perfect case scenario for sorghum Sudan grass to essentially be at near maximum biomass accumulation. And so, I'm putting extra fertilizer on my grass so that I can achieve that extra bit of biomass accumulation while the weather is good. And so, and I've always said, if you find small windows of opportunity to increase the biomass accumulation of your field, then that's where the big bucks are made. Once you find the small windows of opportunity, if you say, I legitimately see an opportunity to double my biomass accumulation over the next week, I genuinely see a 10-day window. So, if it rains 3 days out of the week, I'm probably gonna have a substantial biomass accumulation for about 10 days, right? And so if you genuinely say, over these next 10 days, I legitimately see a window of opportunity to increase my biomass accumulation by like 250% for these next 10 days. If you are, okay, so that is where you make the big bucks, because plants grow proportionately. You have to learn to see these windows of opportunity. I realistically, objectively see a 10-day window of opportunity to increase the biomass accumulation of my field by about 250%. Then my plants will grow like they are on jet fuel for those 10 days. And so, that is where the big bucks are made. If you really want to know what I mean by you need to learn how to farm in real time, and you need to learn how to make objectively correct decisions, this is what I'm talking about. You're gonna see what I mean. You have to learn to utilize windows of opportunity. What happened last week is not going to be the same thing that happens next week. The universe is explosively dynamic, extremely dynamic. The situation that you are in today is not going to be the same as it is tomorrow, as it is the day after, as it is the next week. And if you genuinely see a 10-day window, but this is a very good time to say it, I see a 10-day window of opportunity to increase the biomass accumulation on my grass substantially. And when I utilize that 10-day window of opportunity, it will make me such a drastic amount of money. Legitimately, it will make me thousands of dollars just because of those 10 days. And you're going to see what I mean. That 10-day window of opportunity will make me thousands of dollars. I see a window of opportunity to increase my biomass accumulation by about 250%. And so I'm going to take it. I objectively see the window of opportunity. And by about next week, I've got to go take a look at that property, and I'm just about squared away and good to go. And the thing is, I'm going to hold on to my assets. I don't ever go into cash unless I see, myself starting to go negative financially. If okay, this is the last thing I'll talk about today, and I'll call it a day. When it comes to me going to cash, why would I go and bring home cash, right? If I have assets that are appreciating, why would I go home? Why would I go and bring home cash, right? Why would I bring home cash if I have a bunch of these assets and they are going up in value? Why would I bring home cash? The only time you bring home cash is if you genuinely need the cash. Let's say, I need to pay for my mortgage, and I need to pay for my truck, and I need to pay for my tractor, I need to pay for my food, and I need to pay for my bills. Well, I need $4,000, right? That is when you go, okay, well, I'll just go and sell, I'll go and sell 3 animals. And if I go and sell 3 animals, I'll bring home about $5,000. I'll bring home about $4,000, $5,000, and then that will cover everything, right? Or you see that your assets are no longer, and the other time that you would liquidate your assets, from what I have seen, the other time you would liquidate your assets is if you do not see the capacity to appreciate them anymore. Like, let's say for whatever reason you believe, like, let's say you believe that your animals are going to go down on the conditioning score. You're like, oh, you know, it's been real hard. I mean, there's been a 2-month drought. It hasn't rained in 2 months. I legitimately don't have any grass. There's a drought on 80% of the entire country. Grain prices are exploding. My costs of feed are going exponentially higher. If I had to feed these animals a 3.25% of their body weight a day in a 65 TDN feed, even if I find the most cost-effective feed resources, if I calculate that I need to feed them 3.25% of their body weight a day on a 65% TDN, 12% feed, and then I anticipate that 3.25% of their feed, if I feed them 3.25% of their body weight a day in feed, that they will put on 3 pounds a day, and that 3 pounds a day that they put on is not, the value of those 3 pounds is not worth the cost of the feed. The cost of the feed is higher than the value of those 3 pounds. At that point, I would also highly suggest liquidating your assets. At that point, I would suggest liquidating your assets, because then you can go and you can bring home other assets, right? You can bring home smaller cattle. They're more cost effective to feed. I mean, you can do things to increase their value, right? I mean, you can precondition them, you can castrate them. I mean, you can increase their value through other means, right? And so that is another time that, yeah, I would reasonably consider liquidating assets. But that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.